This is definitely an early post-privatisation locomotive that has been replicated so well by Bachmann. There's a lot going on with these models, and more so than maybe first meets the eye. It really is a perfect model for anyone who's into the more modern era. A big hello to you. It is so great to see you as always, and I hope that you are well. I'm Jenny Kirk, welcoming you here to Weir Yard, and today I've been on a bargain hunt. Well, when am I not on a bargain hunt? Well, what's motivated this in part is there's been so many videos out there from various quarters banging the drum for doom and gloom, the end of the hobby, we're being priced out of the market, that I thought that I'd wade in and show that actually this is utter rot and there are still some great deals to be had, and actually there's never been more models available for the modeler. To that end, I've been browsing in the TMC, the Model Centre sale, and one of the locomotives that really did catch my eye is the Class 90 from Bachmann. At the moment, some of these models are up to 40% off, and I really did like the look of the Freightliner two-tone grey model. Now, this is actually a debranded, I think it's rail freight distribution locomotive, and what really took my fancy about this is it really does bear up to close inspection, on the livery in particular. The closer you look, the more there is there to reveal itself to you. And in particular, the debranding has left its mark on this model, and that has been replicated perfectly in model form. It also has a repair replacement door on one of the cabs, and this is replicated as well, giving a little bit of quirkiness to the model. The weathering application is very, very subtle. Now, I'm not a huge fan of dirty, demic looking locomotives, and in this instance we've got a very, very light grazing of brake dust and dirt. It doesn't actually look all that dirty, but it does bring out the detail, particularly that underframe detail, which really is superb in my opinion. Now, I went for the sound fitted model, but the DCC ready version of this is only £137.97 in the 40% off sale, and it definitely bears closer scrutiny. If, like me, maybe you looked at the Class 90s and thought them a little bit expensive when they first came out, then this is a golden opportunity. We've got a link down below to help you find where these are at, but today I'm going to delve into this model and show you just what you get for your money. Is this model the one to get? Is this hero or is it zero? Well, come with me and we're going to take a closer look. Today's video comes in association with Trainomatic, makers of DCC decoders and accessories that are designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. Find the full range available to order now at tramfabriek.co.uk. Additional support comes from...
This is Clark Railworks, and this is what we do. You'll know us from Ellis Clark Trains, and you'll get the same friendly expertise with us too. We've got a huge range of pre-owned model railways from all your favourite manufacturers, and maybe some you hadn't heard of before. It's the place to come for quality. We don't stock substandard models, and everything we sell is fully tested and photographed by model railway experts. No matter whether you model double O gauge, N, HO or more, we have sought after models from all around the world with new listings added every weekday. Check out what's available now at clarkrailworks.com and don't miss out on your latest loco.
Electric locomotives can be quite quirky and interesting, and certainly the classes 81 through to 87 are very much that way. The Class 90 is much more modern by comparison, and being designed as a product of the late 80s and delivered from 1990, they're more akin to Dad's old Sierra Sapphire, with the quirky 80s designs, but not quite the weird flair and strange colours of the 1970s. And I really do like these things. They allude back to a happier, simpler time before the internet, and when you really could just go out and see some really interesting rail freight operations, as the wagon load services were still on the go, and there were still a lot of industries out there using rail as their mode of transportation. But first of all, I'd like to ask a huge favour. Please hit that like button, share this video and also subscribe to the channel to be the first to know about new videos as and when they go up. And you can also check us out over on Patreon at the link down below if you want to help support the channel. But let's get on with that Class 90 review. Is this a hero model or a zero model? Let's take a closer look. As part of my Grab a Bargain series, I've been looking around and seeing what's in the sales. And one of the items which actually, I must admit, I was quite disappointed that I didn't get one when they first came out, is the Class 90 from Bachmann. And at the moment, TMC have got their sale on, and some of the items actually have a really good, healthy discount. And in particular, my eye was drawn to this Rail Freight liveried two-tone grey Class 90, which they've got an awful lot of the DCC ready versions, and they're at £137 and change, which is actually about 40% off the original RRP, which was well north of £200. Now, I went for the sound model.
How very delightful!
But most of what they've got in there are the DCC ready. And there's some great deals as well on seen EWS, Intercity livery as well. And it's certainly a great opportunity if perhaps like me, you were put off the Class 90 initially because of the price. Now luckily these have a similar pattern of catalogue numbers to the regular versions, so 32-620, and the SF is just for sound fitted, and it's without the SF for the regular DCC ready version. This is the Class 90, 90048 and Freightliner grey, and this is actually a factory weathered version, so it's a really great deal, and I quite like the weathering. It's quite subtle, and it also includes, we will look at it a bit closer when I get it out of the box, you can see the plate where the original BR sectorization logo would have been taken off, and that's actually reflected in both the livery and the weathering. I really do like that. Now, a word of warning for you though on this, it is a 21-pin model. If you don't have a servo operatable decoder, then it could damage the mechanism that raises and lowers the pantograph. Now, on the back of the box, we've got some information on the Class 90, and also we've got a sticker here as well, just to denote that the Freightliner and the Freightliner logo are registered trademarks and used under license. And sometimes people do ask, why are certain locomotive liveries a little bit more expensive than others? And sometimes, not always, some of the companies do allow licensing for presumably a notional pound. But in some instances it can be that the license holder does need to be paid. Now, the Class 90s are actually older than a lot of people realise. 50 of them built, ordered by British Rail in 1986, and these were actually ostensibly to replace the ageing Class 85 fleet, and it also allowed BR to cascade a number of Class 86s to East Anglia. It's a 110 mile an hour capable locomotive, built at BREL, that's British Rail Engineering Limited in Crewe, in 1990. And the fleet was actually split between different sectors of British Rail to operate passenger, mail, parcels and freight services. The box is a standard Bachmann box. We've got the outer slipcase, and the reason I am showing you the unboxing on this is partly because we've got that little notice there. Although not visible from outside the box, we need to be careful. If you don't have a servo operatable motor decoder, then it could damage the mechanism that raises and lowers the pantograph. Just be aware of that. I guess, now don't quote me on this, if you use a regular decoder, then if you never use that function, that's fine, but don't quote me on that. Now, there are specific decoders sold for these. I think they're also sold to go into things like the Acura scale Class 92. So the decoders are out there, but if you're wondering why do I need to pay a premium for the specific decoder, that is the specific reason why. One of the other things that we've got here, we've got a little detail bag, and because this is the sound fitted version, I've got a blanking plate in there, but we've also got an assortment of extra details, including some nice pre-coloured pipework to adorn the buffer beams, and there's enough in there for both ends of the model. The model itself is actually really quite heavy. It's quite pleasing to feel just how much weight is in these. Certainly, some of the newer models coming through from various manufacturers can be a little bit on the light side, but the Class 90 doesn't suffer at all with that. And it does feel like there's a nice heavy chassis within. The weathering too is a really nice subtle application. The model is not filthy. This is workaday brake dust that would build up on a model, and it's actually really quite well done. And you can see there it's very, very subtle on the lower body sides, and being a light grey colour, this could have easily ruined the model, but actually I think Bachmann have done a really good job on this. Now, I did mention before, you can see where the sectorization logo plate has been removed, and I think that's a really nice touch on the livery. And an awful lot of these debranded locomotives that went on into other ownership would have sported things like that. Certainly my memory is of mainline freight liveried locomotives with a sticker that had been placed on the side over the mainline freight, which denoted the EWS ownership, and also First Northwestern Class 142s. I vividly remember standing next to one not long after privatisation, and it was still in Regional Railways livery, but it had a vinyl sticker stuck over where it had previously said Regional Railways that said First Northwestern, and you could still read Regional Railways through it, which I remember at the time thinking, oh, it's quite curious. I wonder if it was like that when British Rail was formed, British Railways in 1948, and for some time afterwards perhaps liveries persisted, visible through the newer liveries. The rest of the printing on this is actually one of the first things that draws the eye. The Class 90, being a more modern locomotive, does have quite smooth and graceful appearances. We don't have lots of vents and nooks and crannies sticking out. It's got almost quite slab-sided, but this has been captured really well by Bachmann, and I really love some of that additional printing. Just see there next to the doorway. I can't actually read that on the camera view screen. It's a little bit tricky, but I'm sure under magnification we're going to get a really good close-up. We've got the overhead warning flashes on there, and certainly for an electric locomotive that is very, very applicable, because these would pretty much always be under the wires. Now, the front face of these locomotives has been captured really, really well. It's a peculiar quirk, I suppose, of the Class 90s. These have quite a distinctive shape, not quite like the Class 89, but we do have the sloping fronts, probably more reminiscent of the HSTs, where the lights are incorporated into this middle band, and then we've got the raked back windscreen. We've got a roof that overhangs with a kind of sun visor effect, and certainly that has been captured incredibly well on this model. Underneath, the air dam curves backwards, and what I really like is that the application of the yellow warning panel does follow where it needs to be, and even where we have this complex point where lots of these different shapes match up with each other, it's really quite crisp and clean, where the black, the yellow and the grey all meet up. The number there, 90048, is crisp and sharp, finished in this sort of black stroke very dark grey. And again, underneath, we've got the BR double arrow outline, but you can see the little dots. That's where they would have been screwed on, and I guess that's all part of the debranding, and it's a lovely touch of an early post-privatisation locomotive that has been replicated so well by Bachmann. The body side grills are really quite fine. I think it's a separately applied piece, but the fact that it could just be a body side moulding just shows how good the tooling can be. And we've also not got missed out these extra louvres which just fit in there. Again, another detail which could easily have been overlooked but has not been. Down here we've got more extra printing, which is a little bit obscured by the weathering, but just the same as it would be in real life. And then the bogies, these really are a work of art. A lot of the electric locomotives had these coilover springs as part of the secondary suspension, and certainly that is all captured really well with the primary suspension, with the prototypical upper and lower springs on the wheels really, really well done. And this, I guess, was to counteract part of the kind of twisting effects of the motors when these would have been under fast acceleration, just to stop the wheels and the suspension from compressing quite so much in one direction. The rest of the underframe detail really is superb. There's a lot of carefully picked out parts and a lot of detail, and if I roll the locomotive over, you can see that the level of detail actually even continues right through and underneath, where we've got this air tank down the middle, which you just normally wouldn't see, but it's all there and it's all carefully finished. And actually, if I turn the locomotive over, the other side a little bit busier, but that underframe detail really is absolutely sublime. I do like it. You can see the air gaps all the way through. There is a lot of care and attention gone into a feature which actually is very visible from most viewing angles. This side of the locomotive correctly features the extra vents, and you can see there again similar style to the ones on the other side, but really nicely realised. And we've got different bits of debranding going on. Under the 90048 we've got this square patch with the bolt holes showing through, and then we've also got, actually it's quite interesting, on this side the doors to the cabs are both black. On this side we've got a black door, and we've also got a repaired door. I guess that's a replacement that's just in the plain grey or primer. And again, another really nice touch. There's a lot going on with these models, and more so than maybe first meets the eye. With an electric locomotive, you do get quite an interesting roof. We've got the working pantograph. If you've got the sound fitted option, then you don't really have to worry about that, but just do take heed to the advice on the box if you are DCC fitting your own model, and it's probably actually safest to go for the servo enabled decoder, but your choice is a little bit limited and they can be a bit expensive, so just be warned. We've got the bright red bus bar, and that's actually quite a springy plastic, but it's not that kind of plastic that snaps and breaks and goes brittle. It does seem capable of taking a few knocks and bumps. We've got additional roof vents and detail, and it's really nicely done. It's not quite as cluttered and busy as I've seen the roofs of some electric locomotives, but certainly what is there is really quite crisp and nicely done. And then we've got the empty space at the other end. I think when these were first built, certainly they look as though they've been designed to be able to have a pantograph at each end, but by this stage one is not there if it was ever fitted at all. I also like these curved shrouds. You can see there the back of the cab is quite a straight arc. We've got a ring of rivets on the top, but this shroud actually is hollow underneath, again just like on the real locomotive, and it's nice little touches like this which really do bring this model alive. The windscreen is nice, spacious. I can't see any windscreen wipers. I'm just looking at both ends. There's no sign of windscreen wipers. I'm not sure how they actually worked on this model, but you can see into the cab, and we'll try and get a look at that with cab lighting on a little bit later on. We've got additional detail on the front, overhead warning flashes, and the second part of the number 048. Looking further down to the buffer beam, we've got correctly patterned. They're sort of a cross between rectangular and oval buffers, but again really nice, fully sprung. The springs are a bit on the weak side, but to be honest, in 00, I always think sprung buffers, bonus if you have them, not worried if you don't. And we do have this wealth of extra detail factory fitted on the buffer beam. Now, there are a lot of pipes that you can fit if you want to go the whole hog there in the detail bag, but quite frankly, just remember that that will interfere with the tension lock coupling. The lower air dam is fully fitted, and we've got this gap in the front. Now, there are extra pieces to go in there if you want to remove the coupling. These are actually held to the body on a similar style self-centering mechanism, kind of cam mechanism that we've seen on coaches, and the bogies themselves are quite free to turn. We've got all-wheel pickup, and just looking, there's quite a lot of slop on the drive axles, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. We've got these dished front, actually no, they're quite slab-sided front faces to these wheels. They are finished from the factory in black. And we've got all-wheel drive, all-wheel pickup. The actual pickups are a wiper bar, there's a phosphor bronze bar, which just touches behind each wheel, so it plays onto the back face of those. All in all, it really does look a superb model, and at the £137 and change mark that TMC are currently selling the DCC ready versions, that really does bring them down into an incredibly good value ballpark for getting one of these electric locomotives. I actually fell in love with this Freightliner livery. There's little touches with that debranding that really make this one of the most interesting livery applications that I've seen for a while, and this is definitely a locomotive that has tickled my fancy and indeed ended up in my collection. I was really taken with this debranding. It's such a subtle, interesting touch for a livery, and one which I've not really seen before, but the more I look at it, the more I really like it. It's perfect for people modelling that transitional period immediately after privatisation in 1997, and indeed some of these locomotives may have run in this sort of a condition for quite some time, so it really is a perfect model for anyone who's into the more modern era. With the choice of other liveries that TMC have in their up to 40% off sale on these, it really is a great time to pick up a Class 90. I'm sure that if Bachmann do another run, they're going to be very expensive, just as they were before, and you can't guarantee that this level of price discounting will happen again, so get them whilst you can.
Does your home insurance cover your model railway collection? There can be certain conditions or limitations attached to your policy which could leave your collection uninsured or with very limited cover from all kinds of risks. For example, many home policies only provide very limited cover for contents kept in garages or other outbuildings, and some will only cover for collections up to a limited value. Magnet Insurance are here to help give you that peace of mind, making sure that you don't get caught out. Our specialist policies are flexible, and we can work with you to make sure that your collection is correctly covered and answer any questions that you have. Put your mind at ease by giving us a call on 01636 858 249 or visit our website for a quotation at www.modelrailwayinsurance.co.uk.
The locomotive out of the box runs absolutely flawlessly. I have to say that whilst a lot of these models do say that you should have a period running in, I don't tend to find that many models particularly need it, and this Class 90 was no exception to that. On the track, the weight, the all-wheel drive and the all-wheel pickup was very apparent in just how well it performed even down to low speeds over the point work here on Weir Yard. I had it tasked with quite a long train of assorted Mark I coaches, and it really didn't feel like it was taxed in the slightest. Certainly I could imagine it being able to easily haul twice that amount with no serious slippage being observed. It glided gracefully around the track, and if you're wondering about the sound fitted option, it really does sound good. I'm not a huge fan of sound fitting of electric models. They tend to be a little bit on the quiet side, so I was listening quite critically to this as it went round. But I have to say that it is one of the better electric sound options that I've heard, and certainly it wasn't drowned out by the wheel rail noise, which is something that I've noticed can afflict other electric models in my fleet that are sound fitted. All in all, the performance was really, really good. It took in gradients, all of the complex track work and really didn't feel like it was being taxed at all. It's a pleasure to run it, and certainly you have every confidence that it can be tasked to run the train with minimal fuss, and it can be just left to do its thing with no issues whatsoever. The locomotive does come with one or two party tricks, and in the enclosed pamphlet some of these are detailed. First up, the model has retractable buffers, just like the prototype. However, whilst the instructions here are quite detailed, when I came to try this on my model, I did feel that there was too great a resistance, and I became worried that I might actually damage the model, and decided not to proceed because I just didn't want to break the buffers. We also have the removable coupling, and this shows you just how to remove it, and then retrofit the front valance from the detailing pack. And then we've also got a series of switches which will allow DC users to be able to change some of the different lighting functions which are enjoyed by DCC users. To gain access to these, we just very carefully remove the cover closest to the pantograph, and we can see the dip switches revealed underneath. One thing which might have been useful for DCC users, although I do understand why it's not included, is a feature to turn off the pantograph such that you could then use a regular decoder, but I understand this is probably something that really isn't in the interests of Bachmann and would have added to the complexity of the model. Once you've finished setting this up, it's really quite easy to realign the cover and gently push it home. DCC fitting is super easy as well. All you need to do is invert the locomotive, and we're looking for only the 4 screws closest to the underframe detail, and you'll need to just rotate the bogies to gain access to these. A small jeweler's crosshead screwdriver will fit them. Carefully undo them. Again, the same at this end. Once they're all loose, carefully turn the locomotive back over, and this whole roof panel now just lifts free. Just be a bit careful because this detail can be a little bit fragile, and that will expose the 21-pin socket. This one's been factory fitted with the ESU lock sound. It should be noted that the speaker is factory fitted on all models, so if you want to later DCC fit them, then you can quite easily do that and not have to worry about fitting your own speaker. Then it's simply a case of refitting the roof panel and tightening up those screws underneath again. Don't over torque them, just do it until you feel an ever so slight amount of resistance. So we come now to the scores, and first up is build quality, and actually this is a really substantial and well built model, and I didn't have any issues with fragile detail or anything that wasn't really where it should be. And certainly one of the areas that I had initially been concerned with this underframe detail does seem nice and robust and does stand up to handling without any pieces coming off. Even through the demonstration of DCC fitting, nothing untoward happened. The same with all that detail on the bogies and on the buffer beam, and it did feel a really nice resilient model. Even the bus bars on the roof and the pantograph do seem quite robust indeed. So with nothing to fault, I'm going to give this the full 10 out of 10. On running quality, the model did perform really quite well out of the box. I have to say that it was a faultless performer in terms of hauling load. All of the weight in the low-down chassis really does help this, plus the all-wheel drive and all-wheel pickup means that this model doesn't feel like it's taxed in any way, even when you're pulling what could be considered quite a substantial train. And for me, that was really great performance. The only areas where I might think that it suffered just a little bit is there does seem to be a huge amount of slop on the drivetrain. Now, this didn't manifest as any particular problem, but I am going to highlight it. But all in all, it's a pretty good model, and I'm going to give it 9.8. On DCC fitting and innovation, well, I do like some of the features that Bachmann have brought to this. The DCC fitting itself is a lot simpler than we've seen on previous models, and I do like that roof section, which can very carefully be removed with the 4 screws underneath. It does mean that this stays very firmly in place when you're not wanting to get inside, but does give you very easy access to that decoder for DCC fitting. It also means that we don't jeopardize any of the detailing and don't have to struggle getting a body off. The fact that we've got the factory fitted speaker in here as well does go a long way towards reducing the risk of ending up trying to get a body off without destroying anything. I really like as well the easy access dip switches for DC users. Under this nice securely fastened but easy to remove roof hatch, it does make them really easy to use. The livery application too is really quite nice, and certainly this is a great rendition of the BR Class 90 locomotive, which subsequently became rather a workhorse of what you could probably consider the second generation of heavy electric locomotives to grace Britain's railways, and indeed a good number of these locomotives are still running to this day, giving great value for money, and that's going to give us a 9.3. On accuracy and quality of finish, there really isn't anything to fault. For me, I really love this debranded look. Bachmann have gone above and beyond on this, and the shadows and even the screw marks where previous panelling and logos would have been is so well done. It just made me fall in love with this interesting transitional period Freightliner livery. Even on the other side, what I initially thought was a BR double arrow is just the shadow of where one has been fitted, with the screw holes left to deteriorate. I even like this, the door replaced from a spare, which hasn't been painted in the full livery. It's very reminiscent of the almost shoestring budgetary operations that some of these companies that bought into the privatised Britain's railways used to run their locomotives with, whereby the door might get replaced for being defective, but it didn't mean it would get painted to match the livery, at least not immediately. The weathering is really quite a joy. It's so subtle, but it adds so much. This is a lesson how a light dusting of weathering really should be applied. So many models I've seen that are ruined by almost a heavy-handed approach, and quite frankly, these locomotives never got to look like they were verging on being Ademic. This is a nice workaday dusting of brake grime and dust, which has really been pulled off incredibly well by Bachmann, and I'm going to give this the full 10 out of 10. On value for money, now this is a bit of a complicated one because we've got a price point up at £229 as originally released from Bachmann, which would have given this a much lower score, but as these are now all in the sale, I'm going to score it as per the sale price. And actually £137.97 is a really good price for a new modern tooled model with this level of specification. So on that basis, I'm going to give it the compromise score of 9.0, and that gives us still a very respectable score of 48.1. It really is a great model, and if you ummed and ahed over the original release price, then this is a great opportunity to either get one for the first time or maybe add to your fleet. There's a number of different versions available, but my top pick is this Freightliner Rail Freight Distribution debranded two-tone grey livery with the very, very light weathering. There's so much great to say about this livery. It really is my favourite of the bunch. Well, I hope you really enjoyed today's video and found it informative. And we've got a link in the description box down below that takes you to tmcthemodelcentre.com, where I found these models on sale for a really good price. There are a choice of different liveries, but the discount does vary, and the particular one that you saw in today's video is currently at 40% off RRP, and the DCC Ready model is retailing at £137.97, but they're sure to sell out quick, so if this is a must-have model, then do get in there. And really do think that if Bachmann do another production run of the Class 90s, we're never going to see this sort of price level again. They're going to be much more expensive. But what did you think about this model? Do you have a Class 90? Or maybe you've got a whole fleet of them. Is it your favourite? Or is it something that you think, nah, I'm going to pass on that one? I would love to hear from you in the comments section down below. It's a great opportunity to share your wisdom with your fellow modeler and help them out. And also, please don't forget to like this video, share it to social media, and subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so. But until next time, this is me, Kirk, saying you take great care of yourself. Happy modelling. Bye for now. Today's video comes in association with Trainomatic, makers of DCT decoders and accessories that are designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. Find the full range available to order now at tramfabriek.co.uk. Additional support is provided by...
This is Clark Railworks, and this is what we do. You'll know us from Ellis Clark Trains, and you'll get the same friendly expertise with us too. We've got a huge range of pre-owned model railways from all your favourite manufacturers, and maybe some you hadn't heard of before. It's the place to come for quality. We don't stock substandard models, and everything we sell is fully tested and photographed by model railway experts. No matter whether you model OO gauge, N, HO or more, we have sought after models from all around the world with new listings added every weekday. Check out what's available now at clarkrailworks.com and don't miss out on your latest logo.
Does your home insurance cover your model railway collection? There can be certain conditions or limitations attached to your policy which could leave your collection uninsured or with very limited cover from all kinds of risks. For example, many home policies only provide very limited cover for contents kept in garages or other outbuildings, and some will only cover for collections up to a limited value. Magnet Insurance are here to help give you that peace of mind, making sure that you don't get caught out. Our specialist policies are flexible, and we can work with you to make sure that your collection is correctly covered and answer any questions that you have. Put your mind at ease by giving us a call on 01636 858 249 or visit our website for a quotation at www.modelrailwayinsurance.co.uk.
I'd like to thank everybody over on Patreon, and an extra special huge thanks goes out to our Patreon heroes. Without you guys over on Patreon, we really wouldn't be able to keep making the video content that you see on this channel. And don't forget that you can also head on over to patreon.com/JenniferKirk and check out the different tiers of rewards. Thank you so much. You are absolute legends.